Why are we talking about dryness or even the eyes actually? This is something that is fundamental to us to have a good functioning. Talk to a person who is blind or who has disabled vision, and you would know what the amount of fear of blindness that is prevalent around. And also, the other important thing is clarity of vision is very, very important to have a fulfilling life and also do fulfilling work. Just a brief introduction to how the eye looks. Now, we have the outside part of the eye, normally which looks black, is actually a transparent dome like structure. This is the part called the cornea. Within this is the iris, which is actually contributing to the color of your eyes. So, blue eyes, brown eyes, black eyes is contributed to by the iris. The next portion is the pupil, and inside that is our lens. Now, what is the function of the cornea? This dome-like structure performs 70% of the focusing of the rays of light. Now, we know that light falls on the eye and then it gets refracted or it bends inside and it falls on the retina. This is how an image is formed inside the eye. 70% of this bending of the rays happens at the level of the cornea. What is the function is that it protects the eyes from the outside world. It doesn't have any blood supply, therefore making it very special in terms of organ transplantation. And it is cleaned and nourished by either the tears outside and the aqueous humor or the fluid that is inside. The next is the iris. Now, as you can see that this is the colorful part of the eye and it controls the amount of light that is entering the eyes. So similar to something like the shutter of a camera, wherein the shutter increases in size when we need to take a photograph in dim illumination. The iris also has muscles which allow it to contract and make the size of the pupil big. And vice versa, when the light amount is too much, the pupil becomes very small with the aid of the iris muscles. The movement of the contraction of the muscles in the iris causes movement of the pupil, which is the round shape here. This helps in maximizing the visual perception and the visual acuity also. The next remaining 30% that we spoke about for the bending of the rays happens at the level of the lens. This provides the refractive power to the eye. It allows eyes to clearly focus on objects within a 6-meter range. So when we say 6 by 6, it means that for someone who should be standing at 6 meters, he is able to see the finest size of object that it should be visible to him. Now, the lens also has something called UV protection. So we know that in spectacle shops, if you have been purchasing spectacles, many of the owners try to sell you UV protective glasses. Now, if you have the natural God-given lens, then actually these are not useful because we already have UV protection inside a natural crystalline lens. Now, coming to the point in discussion, that is the tear film. Now, over and above all these layers, outside the dome of the cornea that we looked at, is a tear film layer. Now, although it is a very fine or very thin layer, it consists of multiple interfaces which comprise of lipid, water and mucin. So it's not exactly a mathematical structure which is seen here, but this is for just for our understanding. The lipid layer seems to be the outermost, aqueous layer in between, and the mucinous layer last. However, the mucoaqueous layer is known to be an integrated layer. So why do we need this tear film layer in front of the eyes? This is very important for clarity of vision. So sometimes if you have noticed when you are tired or towards the end of the day, or if there is some sort of discharge in your eyes, if you blink several times, your vision becomes clearer. It gives some sharpness to the vision. This is the function of the tear film. Now, along with the cornea and the lens, the tear film also contributes to the refractive power. Because the cornea is also clear and glass-like, the shine to it or the smooth surface to it is given by the tear film. Another important function is that the lipid layer provides lubrication. Now, we blink several thousand times in a day. Why do we not feel that we are blinking every time? This is because of the presence of a tear film which acts as a lubricant. So just like in an engine or in a car, the wheels rotate several times and yet it is a smooth rolling. This is the oil or this is the tear film that allows it to run smoothly without us realizing how many times we are blinking in the daytime. Now, the mucin layer is actually a shear force. It acts to reduce the shear force, when we blink. So all these three layers are very, very important in the blink function of the eye. Now, another important aspect of the tear film is that it contains several enzymes. These enzymes have several antibacterial, antifungal properties, which protect us from the attack by either bacteria or viruses or fungi. Now, these inadvertently, either during driving or during bike riding or driving, or just by the presence of pollutants in the air around us, may enter the eyes. Normally, the tears also physically wash out and flow out if there is any large foreign body entering the eyes. Another important function is also to provide the nourishment to cornea. So the external aspect of the cornea, which is around 500 microns thick, receives its oxygen supply from the tears itself. Therefore, for contact lens users, when we talk about using contact lenses at night, it is a strict no, because anyways contact lenses reduces the oxygen consumption by the cornea, and wearing them at night, it means that the blink function is not there and the tears are stationary. Therefore, oxygen consumption or oxygen nourishment to the cornea is not being met with. Now, where are these tears produced? These very important tears are produced in a fossa that is present in our eyes in this area. So this is the lacrimal gland. It produces the secretion, which is very similar in composition and pH to actually our salivary gland production also. Through the lacrimal gland ducts, it is flowing into the upper lid fornix. Through the upper fornix, it flows down, and then by the blink function, it goes to the tear ducts. Now, these tear ducts are present at the innermost angle of the eyes. Through these ducts, they are now pumped into a small lacrimal duct, which opens into the nose. So, as you may have noticed that when we cry or when we have excess of tear production from the eyes, we also get some amount of water in our throats, or our nose also starts flowing. This is due to the presence of these ducts. Now, this is the normal flow of the tears. What happens in dryness? Now, in dryness, either you don't have enough quality or you do not have enough quantity of the tears. Now, many a times dry eye disease in terms of computer vision syndrome is more of demand and supply imbalance. I'll come to this later. Now, what are the causes apart from the computer strain that can cause the dry eyes? Dryness is the production of tears is related to the hormones, and as we grow older, these hormones may reduce, and therefore, most commonly, dry eyes are experienced by people over and above the age of 60 to 65 years. Women typically, because their hormones drop after menopause, have chances of dryness even before that, maybe 40, 45 also. Another common association is with the use of oral contraception. Also, other medications such as antihypertensives, very commonly blood pressure medicines that is, and decongestants, antidepressants, all these commonly used medications also lead to significant amount of dry eyes. Another important association is the presence of thyroid disease. That is, hypothyroidism commonly leads to dryness of both the skin and as well as of the eyes. Another association is also that of diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis patients typically have an immunological disease that is going on. Their own cells are attacking their joints. Likewise, those cells also attack their lacrimal glands. Now, this is a very chronic process, and very severe dryness may result from this disease. Other environmental conditions also include like presence of a dry climate like we see in Hyderabad. Also, the other factors such as digital overuse of digital gadgets. Now, one of the causes listed is refractive surgeries as LASIK. However, I must say that this issue is temporary, and this happens only because during the surgery of LASIK or any other PRK, we are cutting the corneal nerves, and these nerves typically tend to grow back within a period of 3 to 6 months. Therefore, the dryness is only temporary. Now, very severe dryness is also caused by some serious but very rare conditions called like Sjogren's syndrome, graft versus host disease, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Now, these are very, very rare congenital disorders like dysautonomia, Algrove syndrome. More commonly, we also have dryness due to poor nutrition that is seen in the lower socioeconomic strata. Now, how will you, what would you feel when you have a dry eyes? So these are very inconspicuous symptoms such as redness, very mild sort of redness, not the kind of redness where your eyes look very red, just a dull kind of pinkish color. Pain may be there, which may be again the dull kind. Stinging, severe pain is not associated in dryness. Fatigue is a very common symptom. You just feel tired. The periorbital area feels droopy. You feel like you should just close your eyes and sit. Stinging or burning sensation is another common symptom, commonly seen when the lipid layer is dysfunctional. Uncomfortable contact lenses, again, once again, since we are working prolonged hours on the screen, and if we are using contact lenses at the same time, these may lead to discomfort in contact lenses. Again, like I described in the beginning, episodes of blurring of vision. This blurring of vision may be cleared by repeated blinking. One also may feel that there is sort of a foreign body that is lodged in the eye. That is a very common symptom that we may be having. Also, drooping of eyelids or decrease in our level of activity or level of functioning in front of the system. Now, what is digital eye strain or computer vision syndrome? So it is actually a number of things that come together, and it happens. It happens typically for those who are using the digital screen for more than 6 to 8 hours per day. Now that is almost everybody, because with the change in the world due to C-19, we have all started using a lot of the system, including in the medical profession or in professions where digital had no business at all. So what happens is when we are looking at a screen, our blink rate tends to decrease. This leads to a lot of effort during focusing and leads to evaporation of tears and leads to the muscles becoming tired very fast. Now, this is just a graphic representation of increase in computer usage in 2019. Now, this is pre-COVID, and I must say that this must have at least tripled in the post-COVID era. So, what is exactly the cause? Why do we have dryness or decreased blink when we look at the digital screen? So we all know that, of course, you guys know better than me that the screen is comprised of tiny pixels or tiny dots, and it's very hard for our eyes to focus. Therefore, anybody who is looking at a screen is invariably and unconsciously focusing and refocusing again to keep the images sharp. So the function of our eyes is to give us clear and crisp vision, which many of the times we are reflexly trying to focus and refocus. So this results in the receptive stress of the eye muscles. Second thing is also because when we look at the screen, we tend to stare at it. This is again a reflex thing, and because of that, the rate of blinking decreases. So of course, as the word depicts, digital eye strain implies not just computers but also laptops, televisions, smartphones, tablets, anything with a screen which displays a light. So again, some of the other symptoms of computer vision syndrome, since we are talking about a syndrome, we also may have other systems that are affected. For example, there may be headache, or there may be pain in the neck, back and shoulder. So normally we blink only 14. We blink around 14 times in a minute. So this is all happening subconsciously, and we don't have to actually measure the number of times we are blinking on any normal day. However, it is found during observational studies that down to very slow rate of 4 to 6 times per minute. Another very important thing that is happening now is use of air conditioning. When we air condition the air, we are only talking about the temperature and not about the humidity. A cold climate with a low humidity is very, very harmful to the dryness. So low humidity with a chilled environment will lead to evaporation of the aqueous layer. This leads to exacerbation of dry eye symptoms. And the same concept also happens to inside our cars, in our offices, even at home. Now this leads to progress in the, and chronically it leads to change in the tear film. So another pre-COVID problem was that frequent air travel will exacerbate dry eye symptoms. So average air humidity in the aircraft is 9 to 28%, whereas on an average day over in a city like even Hyderabad, which is said to be dry, it is almost around 60 to 70%. So now, if the humidity is less, our tears are going to evaporate, leading to increase in the exacerbation of symptoms. Now, what is the fear? I mean, why are we talking about this so much? Now, the tears, like we saw, are very important to prevent infections in the eyes. Without that, the lubricant of the eye is absent, which means that our blink is going to be very strained and a lot of effort goes into it. If we don't treat, what happens? There may be some chronic changes. There may be exacerbation of some inflammation in the eyes. That is, the eyes may become more and more red, and there may be some abrasions that may happen on your corneas. Now, the cornea is like a glass. If there is nothing to protect it, there is no protective tear film, then there may be abrasions. More insidious and more impactful is actually the decrease in the quality of life. So some people are not able to function beyond 8 hours just because they have dryness in the eyes. Now, how should we? Yes, Miss Shivani has raised her hand. Maybe we could take that question.
Yeah, doctor, we can take the questions once you are done with the presentation. Doctor, we can take the presentations.
Sure, I understand.
All right, thank
you.
So,
what are the 10 steps towards preventing dry eye disease or tackling dry eye disease? Or so what do you need to do is get a comprehensive eye exam sometime. We should know whether we need glasses or not. You should share with your eye care provider how many hours do you work on the computer, how far are your eyes located from the screen. Revisit these things. Now, also another very important aspect is the light that is coming out from your screen. So I always ask my patients whether they are using an anti-reflective coating. Many of the times, an anti-reflective coating is already inbuilt in your system, but it has not been switched on. So this is very important and should be seen in your own system. Another thing is your ambient lighting, whether the lighting is too high. So in most offices, if the lighting is very bright, then your screen brightness is lesser than that, causing a little bit of discomfort to you. Now, if the external light is even more bright, then it causes even more discomfort. So all these are guidelines that have been provided by years of research. So we need to have ambient lighting to be less than that of your screen. Now, even fluorescent bulbs, light bulbs, number of bulbs or number of tubes that are there, these all need to be less than the guideline. Now, another important thing of work from home situation is that, in fact, at home, if you see that the guidelines of lighting, home lighting is far lesser than the lighting that used to be at work. So that could cause some other kind of discomfort because you're working constantly in a very dim light and you're staring at a screen that is very bright. That could also lead to, conversely, to more strain because of the staring that may be happening. Another very important aspect is the angle at which you look at the screen. So typically, if I'm looking up at an object, then my eyes are wide apart. Whereas if I'm looking down, then my eyes become a little narrower slit. So position your computer or your screen so that you're looking down at it, looking down at the screen rather than looking up at it. This not only leads to neck discomfort looking up, it also increases the width of your eyes, leading to probably more evaporative loss of the tear film. Now, these are also important points such as glare on the walls and the finished surfaces, and the presence or absence of an anti-glare screen, as I said. Now, what if you have an old system, or your systems keep changing, and you don't know whether the next system that you're going to use will have anti-glare system screen installed or not. In that case, I would suggest that purchasing an reflective coated plain glass, if you don't need a number, or if you have a number, then anti-reflective coating on top of that would make a lot of sense, and also reduces a lot of the hidden strain that we have on our eyes. Now, LCD screens are better than the old tube style monitors, definitely. And also, like we saw, the pixels are the ones that cause the strain on the eyes. Therefore, try and use the highest resolution possible. Larger displays are less damning. Display that has a diagonal screen size of at least 19 inches is preferable. So text size and contrast, if you see that this kind of a text background wherein you have a very busy background, it's very difficult and tiring to read for a long duration. Another thing is very low contrast, like this is yellow and background is yellow, is again better avoided. This kind of a black text on a white background is the best thing. Other combinations, for example, our macula is most receptive to yellow light. Therefore, using a yellow light as a background and then using its counterpart, that is blue light, as a text color works very well. Now, this kind of a statement is easy for me to make, but I wouldn't expect any of you to actually count the number of blinks that you are going to do in a minute, because it's actually impractical and impossible for us to think about how many times am I blinking in while looking at the screen. So rather than that, I would say that take a break every 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and then consciously work your efforts towards looking at the distance. Now, another exercise is also that look away from the computer at something that is green. So you can open the window, go out for a walk, have a break. So this kind of prevents the focused viewing of towards the computer that you have been doing. Now, this take 15-minute to 15-minute breaks is something that perhaps if any of you are service at the top levels, you may frown upon what I'm talking about, because you don't want your employees to take every 15-minute breaks. But the fact of the matter is that constantly looking at the screen is very tiring, and unless you have a game plan in action, it's going to be very tiring for you in the long run. Now, other aspects, that is, you need to position your computer screen at a 20 to 24 inches away from you. The center of the screen should be 10 to 15 degrees below your eyes. Adjust your workstation and your chair to the correct height. So you should not have that the workstation is much higher than you, or you are very tall, such that your feet are hanging. And also, if you are using also if your feet are hanging from the ground, it's going to cause some discomfort. If your neck is in the wrong posture, if your back is in the wrong posture, it's going to contribute to the computer vision syndrome. Now, the desk lamp typically should be falling from behind you and not into your eyes. And also light your copy stand properly. Now, these are all pre-COVID again. At home, I would say that you should make sure that the lighting is sufficient enough. Now, modify your eyeglasses to customize computer glasses. Like I said, anti-reflective coating is very helpful. Computer glasses are also a good choice if you're wearing bifocals or progressive lenses, and can be added to those as well. And contact lenses, typically, I wouldn't say avoid them when you're using, but if you're working like 12 hours and 14 hours on the system, it's best to take a break, remove the contact lenses for an hour or so after 8 hours, and then reinsert them. So a lot of patients ask me, what should I eat, or what should I drink, what should I make? Now, a lot of green leafy vegetables, lot of vegetables that are rich in vitamin E, like anything that is yellow, papaya or carrots, are really good for the eyes. Of course, as is true for any other system, the kidney and the eyes also, drink plenty of water. Now, flaxseed oil has been mentioned to be rich in omega-3 fatty acid, which is very good both for the eyes and for the heart. Although studies say otherwise, we have plenty of anecdotal evidence and patients who are very satisfied with the use of omega-3 fatty acid either as a capsule supplement or in the form of naturally present in both in flax seeds or fish or almonds. Of course, too much of anything is bad, but red meat is not great for the eyes. Too much of fat is not great for the eyes, and as is for anything else, or typically for our waistline, carbs are not good. So these are the signs and symptoms where I would say that don't hesitate to contact a medical professional. A lot of medical professionals are now available on for video consultation. We can fortunately take reasonably good resolution photos on any average mobile phone. So any eye which is red or painful, which is having discharge, or you can see a visible lesion on the lid or the eyes. If there has been any previous trauma to the eye, which is leading to either a loss of vision, or you feel that the eyes have suddenly bulged out. If you have symptoms of dryness along with joint pain, swelling, or stiffness of joints, if your dry eyes are associated with a dry mouth, because then these two indicate some sort of a systemic anomaly, and eyes which are not responding to the commercially over the counter available tear substitutes like Refresh. All these are indications that you need to seek help. So now we have a wonderful option of video consultation as an interim measure before actually visiting a doctor. It saves time, it saves the doctor and the patient their traveling problems, and also gives us an understanding whether it's serious enough to travel to the doctor or not. Now, in summary, when tears there is not enough when there is demand supply imbalance in the tears, you get a dry eyes. So, like in computer vision syndrome, the demand is very high since our eyes are being used a lot on the system, and the supply is normal. So, although we are very healthy, our tear manufacturing is very healthy, yet the demand is so high that there is an imbalance leading to dryness. Now, due to the inadequate this imbalance, lubrication and nourishment to the eye is insufficient. Computer vision or digital eye syndrome is one of the major reasons for dryness. To avoid these dryness, you could actually make significant measures ergonomically at home in the lighting conditions, in your own sitting position, and in your system for to avoid this dry eyes. And of course, we also saw in which situation should you contact a medical professional. Thank you very much for your patient listening, and I'll be very happy to answer the queries. We wanted to keep this presentation short so that we could give more time to discussion, and please feel free to ask me any questions.
Thank you, doctor, for the very informative presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Doctor, my first question would be, for extensive screen use, must lubricating drops be used as a preventive, or should it be used only when there is discomfort in the eyes?
That's a very good question, Sheila, actually. So, mostly we are seeing that the newer generation is very adapted to using screens, and many of them have very good tear function and no symptoms at all. So as of now, we don't recommend any prophylactic or preventive use of tear substitutes. So at the end of the day, any tear substitute will have some amount of preservatives, which we would want you not to use for a very long time. That is why we avoid the drops. However, we do have a large variety of over-the-counter availability of tear substitutes, and they could be used on an SOS basis. That is, if you have discomfort, you could use it on that particular day. If you don't, then you can very well discontinue it without any damaging effects to a normal eye.
Thank you, doctor. Can it be bought over the counter, or do we need to check with the doctor, get a prescription, and then buy it, doctor?
No, there's in India you can get even legal drugs on over the counter, but yes, very legally you can get over the counter.
Any specific brand you would recommend, or is whatever available is safe enough, doctor?
Importance of understanding that I hope that answers your question.
I would request the attendees to raise their hand or put their questions on the chat box for the questions to the doctor. Doctor, we have one question from Mr. Mohit Rao. He is asking how effective are Blu-ray blocking lenses? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Doctor is not audible.
We'll wait for a while. She will be back. Meanwhile, I'll ask the attendees to their questions on the chat box. You can always raise your hand to ask the questions directly to the doctor. Doctor, since before the disconnect, Mr. Mohit Rao wants to ask how effective are Blu-ray blocking lenses?
Yeah. So, Mr. Mohit, that's also a very interesting question because there's a lot of market pressure about the Blu-ray glasses. And in fact, so therefore, I wanted to look at what kind of studies have been done about the Blu-ray. And very surprisingly, really large number of studies have been done already, and they have not shown any benefit of Blu-ray. However, a few patients, I wouldn't say my numbers are very large, but a few 10-15 patients of mine have on their own taken Blu-ray glasses and have been happy with them. So sometimes studies may or may not reveal the truth, but I would say that probably this is more of a market pressure than actual benefit. Am I audible?
Yes, doctor. Doctor, there is one more question.
Yes,
is how safe it is? Somebody has an eye issue. He's thinking I should put on the glasses. So how safe it is to go to any of the in any of the hospitals or eye clinics for an eye test? If at all a lens or spectacles are required. How safe it is right now?
So I work in both sort of situations. I am in a multi-speciality hospital where we used to treat COVID patients. But throughout the pandemic, we have maintained very meticulously both social distancing and surface cleaning. So we've been safe throughout. I'm sure many across Hyderabad, we have had guidelines, and all of our colleagues have followed use of mask, use of hand hygiene, use of social distancing measures. We have a protocol where we give fixed appointment slots to the patient so that there's no crowding that's happening. So I would say that these are the few points that you should ask about before taking an appointment with your doctor. Whether there will be too many people around or not. So safety-wise, another suggestion would be that probably carrying hand hygiene and making sure that you don't lower your mask, because a typical ophthalmic examination doesn't need you to lower your mask at all, which is a very good safety point for elderly patients and high-risk patients. So we can very easily complete our entire ophthalmic assessment without having to lower the mask, either of the doctors or of the patients. So I would say the simple answer to that is yes.
Because when we go for a checking eye test, they will be putting a lot of lens to check what is what should be the number of your lens, so that may be a reason many are avoiding to go, because they will be using a lot of lens to check the eye quality. So that was a reason for that question.
That's again another good point. So what the protocol that we are following for cleaning of the spectacle frame and the lenses that we use is we have 2 sets, and as soon as we finish examining one patient, there is a tray next to it, which is a plastic tray, and in which it is placed. Now the plastic tray has soap water in it, so it remains dipped in soap solution for a good 15 to 20 minutes, after which it is thoroughly washed under running water. So as we know, the virus does not persist on surfaces if we are cleaning them with soap.
Thank you, doctor. From the attendees, if at all we have any questions for the doctor, you can please raise your hand or type it in the chat box.
We had Miss Shivani had raised her hand in the middle of the talk.
Shivani, I'm allowing you to talk. You can put your question to the doctor. Yes, Shivani, over to you. Shivani?
Ma'am, one question mark from my end. Can we go for LASIK surgery in the age group of 40-45 years?
Short answer, yes, but it depends on the power. So there is no physical risk of doing LASIK at 40 or at 20. It's the same. The thing at 40 is that you also have reading glasses. So if you have a minus number already and then you have reading glasses in addition to that, we have new technology which takes care of both the numbers. But there are some side effects of that we are still looking at, and we don't really have very long-term data of that. But there are intermediate procedures that we can do where we can get rid of the distance power in one eye and the near power in the other eye, and make sure that they are balanced enough. That is called monovision. So that can be done. But if you ask me, say the best possible scenario for doing LASIK in 44 age is somebody who has a very large minus number, say minus 10, minus 12. If he gets rid of the entire number and then is ready to use a small +1, +2 lens only for reading purposes, that's the best kind of scenario.
Thank you, ma'am.
Doctor, there is one more question coming in is, how often do you recommend to go for an eye test in a year for people above 30-35 years of age?
Actually not required unless they have visual symptoms. Above the age of 40, it is mandatory to have eyes checked once in a year. But less than that, I would say unless you have symptoms, there's actually no need.
Doctor, one question. How different is a polar cataract from an ordinary cataract?
How different is which cataract? Say that again.
Polar cataract.
Polar. Yeah.
Polar.
So posterior polar, we have polar cataracts. We have anterior polar, which is a congenital anomaly, which is again very rare, and we have posterior polar, which are very common, which are seen typically in maybe I would say 1 to 3% of the cases. So they are a little difficult to manage surgical wise, and you need to have them addressed by a surgeon of considerable surgical experience.
Doctor, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
The levels of diabetes, increased level of diabetes, can it also affect the eyes?
Yes, absolutely. So diabetes affects the eyes in a couple of very important mechanisms. As we know, in diabetes, there is an increase in the sugar in the blood. However, the oxygen supply to the cells is not happening. So it's sort of poverty in plenty, we call it. Now, because of that, what happens is, say this is a blood vessels in front of you, and you have one cell here, one cell here, one cell here, one cell here. So out of these 4 cells, one of them will probably not get enough oxygen and will die. So because of this, what happens is, in our blood vessels, there will be areas where the solutes or the oxygen or the serum that is going will leak out. And what happens in the eyes or in the kidneys is that these blood vessels are going to become narrower and narrower and narrower as they go to the end organs, which is the eyes or kidneys or other small organs. So these narrow blood vessels don't have any oxygen remaining to provide to these to the structures that they are going to, and because of this there is some amount of decreased oxygen supply to focal areas. Now if that happens in, say, your arm or your foot, you have different kinds of problems. There may be some infection or something. If that happens in the retina, it's very sad and very devastating visually, because then you will have patches of your retina which are having either bleeding or sort of swelling. So that makes the visual apparatus go awry, and you have blurred vision, which of course in the initial stages we have a lot of good medicines for it, but we still don't have any treatment for the last stages of something called diabetic retinopathy. Now this is one way. Second way is neurotrophy. So we know that diabetes also affects our nerves. So nerves all over our body are becoming weaker and number in case of uncontrolled diabetes. So also the nerves that are supplying our cornea. Now we saw that cornea doesn't have a blood supply, but it definitely has a nerve supply. So the nerve supply is important in terms of reflex secretion of the tears. So the nerve supplies are sending information to the brain or to the lacrimal gland to supply more or less tears. Now because of this neurotrophy, the reflex action is not going to happen. So say there is say a dust particle coming towards your eyes. Our first reflex is to close our eyes, the blink reflex. So that is a very good protective mechanism of the eyes. The neurotrophy will, if there is no neurotrophy, we can feel even the finest particle inside the eyes, because these nerve endings are present in lakhs of numbers inside that tiny piece of cornea. So those will go down, and then we won't feel the foreign body. Production of tears is less. So multiple things actually happening at the ocular surface level also.
Ma'am, one more question. How safe is to use contact lens in this corona time, and is it advisable to not use contact lens and use specs instead, to be more having precautions on that?
See, the fomite thing exists for everything. Whether the COVID virus spreads through contacts, through tears or not, it has been proven that it can spread through tears. But in contacts, we generally don't share contact lenses. Generally, we all have our own case. People who use them have them separately kept. Even the right and left eye are separately kept. So as long as you are cleaning your hands before inserting into the eye or removing from the eye, I don't see why it is less safe. Case has to be clean at any point, pre-COVID or post-COVID or intra-COVID. So as long as you're maintaining the basic care and care of the lenses, I'm sure that there is no added risk of using contact lenses. Spectacles, rather, I would say that spectacles at home can be decontaminated by something called a UV tube or a UV case that is available in the market. That is one way. Or simple washing under free-flowing water with soap is also working well. So in a way, they are more easy to maintain, but that exists either ways, with or without COVID.
Thank you, ma'am.
Doctor, there is one more question coming in. Is if how do you differentiate as a migraine headache and a regular headache? Somebody who is not aware that he or she has a migraine and they are getting headaches regularly. So how do we differentiate? How do you know actually it's a migraine or a regular headache which you are getting?
Sure. So as an ophthalmologist, I would not be the perfect person to answer your question. But we do see a lot of headaches due to the usage of incorrect prescriptions or wrong number of glasses or not using glasses at all. So I would be able to give you a preliminary answer to this. The best kind of answer would be given by a neurologist. So migraine headaches typically are half-sighted. So it does not cross the midline. This is number one. Number two is generally migraines have a trigger. So it could be anything. It could be, say, coffee. It could be lack of sleep. It could be traveling. It could be a particular smell. So the trigger is different for different people. It could be some particular type of food. So that kind of a trigger leading to the onset of the headache. And then if the trigger is absent, the lack of that pain is very typical of migraine. These are the two differentiating points of a migraine and a regular headache. Regular headache could be, frontal, both the sides, or it could be occipital on the top of your head, or it could be just global. It may be associated with vomiting. It may be associated with symptoms of gastritis, any other sort of symptoms. So another also aspect of migraine is that migraine may start from the eyes. So that is called as ophthalmoplegic migraine. That is associated with wherein the beginning of the headache starts from the eyes, where the patient sees star bursts, and the eye is the one that starts paining first. It's a throbbing kind of pain.
Thank you, doctor.
Are we done with the questions?
I believe we are done with the questions. Meanwhile, if I would like to introduce Mr. Srinivas Taluka, Director Facilities T-Hub, for some quick words and a vote of thanks to Dr. Puranik. Srinivas, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Shankar. Thank you very much for arranging this call. Special thanks to Sheila ma'am from EduTech Solutions for her excellent coordination. It helped actually a lot of people to know more about the eye problems, especially related to dry eyes in this pandemic situation. I would also like to give my special thanks to Dr. Charuta, for giving us her valuable time and sharing her knowledge and experience, especially in terms of what to eat, what not to eat. That's the point which is very much important for many of us, and also most of the times when we are sitting in front of the system, we ignore that how much time we are spending, and then we continuously focus. So that is also a problem statement for many of us. So thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge and the information. Thanks a lot, and I also thank all the participants who joined this call and made this call meaningful to all of us. Thank you very much, and I appreciate Shankar for making this call seamless. Thank you. Good job done.
Thanks to T-Hub for inviting, and Alargan for.
I just add a few words. Doctor. So on behalf of T-Hub, we from Educate Solutions thank you, Dr. Charuta, for a wonderful presentation and for taking time off from your busy schedule to spread awareness to the participants today on this very important topic. Thank you, Doctor, for providing us with insightful tips on how to protect our eyes and also for patiently answering all the queries. I would especially like to thank Mr. Srinivas for giving us this opportunity at T-Hub and Mr. Shankar for seamlessly coordinating the session. Thanks to Mr. Ashwin of Emergent for connecting us with the doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I also request all the attendees to share their feedback. Once we close the session, the screen going to pop up for your feedback. We'll definitely look forward for all your feedback. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the session. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.